The corridors of Buckingham Palace were never truly silent. Even at 3 in the morning, the ancient walls seemed to whisper with centuries of secrets. But on that particular November night, the silence felt different. It felt dangerous. James Morrison had served the royal family for 12 years. As a member of the elite royal guard, he'd sworn an oath of loyalty and discretion. He'd seen things that would never make headlines. He'd heard conversations that could topple governments. But what he witnessed that night shattered everything he believed about duty and honor. It started with footsteps. Quick, deliberate, coming. From the West Wing, where senior royals held their private offices, James stood at attention near the grand staircase, his red uniform perfectly pressed, his expression neutral. Years of training had taught him to become invisible. People spoke freely around guards, as if they were furniture. The footsteps grew closer, then voices. Hushed but urgent. "The plan needs to accelerate," a woman's voice said, sharp, authoritative. "We cannot wait any longer." James recognized that voice immediately. It belonged to Queen Camilla. His heart began to pound, but his face remained still. Through his peripheral vision, he saw her emerge from the shadows with two figures he didn't recognize. A man in an expensive suit, a woman carrying a leather folder. "The public adores her," the man said, his tone almost apologetic. "Removing her will cause tremendous backlash." "I don't care about backlash," Camilla replied coldly. "I care about securing the line of succession properly. Catherine has too much influence. Too much favor with Charles? That needs to end. If you're shocked by what you're hearing, imagine standing there in that moment, bound by duty to remain silent. Before we continue, hit that subscribe button, because this story takes turns you won't believe, and you won't want to miss what happens next. James felt ice run through his veins. Catherine, princess. Kate, the most beloved member of the royal family. The woman millions adored. The mother of 3 future heirs. "The medical records will be convincing," the woman with the folder said. "We've ensured the documentation appears authentic. Once leaked to the press, the narrative will shift. Mental instability. Inability to fulfill royal duties. The people will demand she'll step back, and if she refuses..." The man asked. Camilla stopped walking. The group stood just 15 feet from James now, close enough that he could see the determined set of her jaw in the dim light. "Then we'll make certain she has no choice," she said quietly. "There are other methods." Words hung in the air like poison. James's mind raced. This wasn't palace politics. This wasn't petty jealousy between royals. This was something far more sinister. A calculated plot to destroy Princess Kate's reputation and remove her from royal life. But what could he do? Speak up and lose everything. Stay silent and watch an innocent woman be destroyed. The group moved past him, their conversation fading down another corridor. James stood frozen, his oath of loyalty suddenly feeling like chains. He didn't know it yet, but in the next 48 hours, his decision would change everything. Morning light filtered through the palace windows, but it brought James no comfort. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Camilla's cold voice. There are other methods. What did that mean? How far would they go? He went through his duties mechanically. Changing of the guard. Patrol routes. Security briefings. But his mind was elsewhere, trapped in an impossible dilemma. By afternoon, he'd made a decision. He needed proof. If he was going to break his oath and expose what he'd heard, he needed more than just his word against the queen consorts. The palace employed over 800 staff members. Somewhere in that vast network, others must have seen or heard something. He just had to find them. His opportunity came during the evening shift change. Sarah Chen, a housekeeper he'd known for years, was leaving the private office's wing. Her face looked troubled. "Sarah," he said quietly, falling into step beside her. "You look upset. Everything all right?" She glanced around nervously. "I shouldn't say anything. If something's wrong, maybe talking would help." They reached a quiet alcove near the service entrance. Sarah's hands twisted together anxiously. "I was cleaning the queen consort's study yesterday," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. She was meeting with someone. A doctor, I think. They didn't know I was there, arranging flowers in the corner. James's pulse quickened. What did they say? They were discussing Princess Kate's medical history, looking for anything they could use. The doctor mentioned prescriptions, past treatments, anything that could be twisted to look concerning. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. They're building a case against her, James. They're going to make her look unstable. Did you see any documents? The doctor had a file. I only glimpsed it for a moment before they noticed me and stopped talking. But I saw Kate's name on it, and something about a psychiatric evaluation that doesn't exist yet. James felt his stomach drop. They were creating fake medical records. There's more, Sarah continued. I heard them mention the children. They said if Kate won't cooperate, they'll use George, Charlotte, and Louis as leverage. Suggests she's not fit to raise future monarchs. The cruelty of it staggered him. Attack a mother through her children. Destroy her reputation and her relationship with the only people who mattered most to her. We have to tell someone, James said. Who? The king. He trusts Camilla completely. He'd never believe us. Sarah's voice broke. We're staff, James. Invisible. Replaceable. Who would listen to us? She was right. Palace hierarchy was absolute. Staff members who made accusations against senior royals found themselves dismissed, discredited, their lives destroyed. But James couldn't let this happen. Not to Kate, not to anyone. What if we gathered evidence? He suggested. Real proof? Documents, recordings, anything concrete. Sarah looked terrified. That's treason. We'd be arrested. Is it treason to stop something evil? The question hung between them. Sarah stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. The doctor's name is Whitmore, she said. Dr. Richard Whitmore. He has a private practice in Harley Street. If there are documents, they might be there. That night, James lay in his small staff quarters, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his family in Yorkshire. His mother, who was so proud of his position. His sister, who told everyone her brother guarded the king. Tomorrow, he would become a traitor. Or a hero, depending on who won. Getting access to Dr. Whitmore's private practice proved easier than expected. The doctor maintained an office in the palace medical wing for royal consultations. James simply waited until the early morning hours when most staff were changing shifts. The office lock was old-fashioned. A simple bypass with a maintenance key that James borrowed from the security office. His heart hammered as he slipped inside. The room smelled of antiseptic and leather. Medical certificates lined the walls. A large mahogany desk dominated the center. It was covered in neat stacks of files. James used his phone's flashlight, careful to keep the beam low. He rifled through drawers, looking for anything with Kate's name. Minutes ticked by, 5, 10, 15. Then he found it. A manila folder hidden beneath a stack of routine paperwork. The label read, Project Catherine, Confidential Assessment. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside were detailed psychological evaluations, dated for appointments that hadn't happened yet. Clinical notes describing anxiety, depression, and paranoid episodes that Kate had never experienced. Recommendations for immediate psychiatric intervention and removal from public duties. It was all fabricated. Every word a lie. But it looked official, convincing. The kind of documentation that could destroy a reputation in ours once. Leaked to the media, there were also handwritten notes in the margins. Camilla's distinctive script. Emphasize postpartum issues after Louis. Make it seem progressive. Suggest William is covering for her. James photographed every page, his anger building with each click. They weren't just attacking Kate. They were weaponizing motherhood, mental health, and public sympathy against her. At the bottom of the folder was something worse. A draft press release. Pre-written for when the story broke. Buckingham Palace deeply regrets to confirm that Catherine, Princess of Wales, has been struggling with severe mental health challenges. At the recommendation of medical professionals, she will be stepping back from all royal duties indefinitely to focus on her well-being and her role as a mother. The royal family asks for privacy during this difficult time. The date on the draft was 1 week away. They'd already chosen when to destroy her. James tucked his phone away and returned the folder, exactly as he'd found it. He slipped out of the office, his mind racing. He had evidence now. Proof of the conspiracy. But proof was meaningless without someone powerful enough to act on it. He couldn't go to the king. Charles was too close to Camilla to trusting. The police would laugh him out of the station. Royal family matters were untouchable. That left only one person. The one person with enough public support and determination to fight back. He had to warn Princess Kate herself. The next morning, James volunteered for garden patrol. The route took him past the private residence where William and Kate stayed during palace visits. He'd have maybe 30 seconds when she walked to her morning engagement. At 9:45, Kate emerged from the side entrance. She wore a blue dress, her smile warm but tired. The strain of recent months showed in the subtle lines around her eyes. James stepped forward, breaking protocol. "Your Royal Highness," he said quietly, "I need to speak with you. It's urgent. It concerns your safety." Kate stopped, surprised. Her protection officer moved closer, alert. "It's all right, David," she told her security. Then to James, "What is this about?" "There's a plot, ma'am. To remove you from the palace. I've seen documents. Heard conversations. They're planning to leak false medical records. Make you look unstable." Kate's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. As if this confirmed something she'd already suspected. "Who?" she asked simply. "The Queen Consort, ma'am." The words fell like stones between them. Kate gestured for James to follow her into a private garden alcove, away from listening ears. Her protection officer stood watch at a distance. "Tell me everything," she said, her voice steady but tight. James explained it all. The midnight conversation. The fabricated medical records. The plan to use her children as leverage. He showed her the photographs on his phone, watching her face as she scrolled through the fake psychiatric evaluations. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained controlled. "How long have you known?" 3 days, ma'am. I needed proof before coming to you." "And why did you come at all?" "You've put your career at risk. Your freedom." James met her eyes. "Because it's wrong, ma'am. Because some things matter more than duty to institutions. Like duty to what's right." Kate was silent for a moment, staring at the fabricated documents on his phone. When she looked up, there was steel in her expression. "They've underestimated me," she said quietly. "They think I'm just a pretty face for photographs, that I'll crumble under pressure." She handed back his phone. "They're about to learn differently. What will you do?" "What I've been trained to do since the day I married into this family. Fight. But I need your help. I need you to continue gathering evidence. More conversations. More documents. Build a case so airtight they can't deny it. That's dangerous, ma'am. If they discover what I'm doing, then we both go down," Kate finished. "I understand what I'm asking. But James, if we don't stop this now, it won't end with me. Camilla will go after anyone she sees as a threat. This is about power, control, the future of the monarchy itself." She was right. This wasn't just personal. It was institutional. A battle for the soul of the royal family. "I'll need time," James said. "A week, maybe 2, to document everything. You have 5 days. The press release is scheduled for next Tuesday. We need to move before then." Kate pulled out her own phone and typed quickly. "I'm giving you my private number. Send reports directly to me. Trust no one else. Not other staff. Not security. No one." "What about Prince William?" A shadow crossed her face. "William doesn't know yet. And he can't. Not until we have everything we need." She saw his confused expression. "My husband loves his father. Trusts his stepmother. If I tell him now, without absolute proof, it will destroy him. Family loyalty runs deep in this institution. I need evidence that even love can't deny." James nodded, understanding the impossible position she was in. "There's something else," Kate added. I did some research after strange things started happening a few months ago. Documents going missing from my office. Private conversations somehow becoming public knowledge. Staff members suddenly transferring away from my household. You suspected something was wrong. I suspected sabotage. I didn't realize how organized it was. She looked toward the palace, its ancient stones glowing in the morning sun. This building has survived fires, wars, scandals, but sometimes the greatest threats come from within. They parted ways carefully. Kate returned to her schedule as if nothing had happened. James resumed his patrol route, his mind already planning the next steps. That afternoon, he made contact with 3 other staff members Sarah had identified as potential allies. A junior secretary who'd overheard phone calls, a palace clerk who'd noticed unusual document requests, a member of the communications team who'd been asked to draft negative talking points about Kate for contingency planning. They met in secret during shift changes and lunch breaks. Each person added another piece to the puzzle. The conspiracy was bigger than James had realized. It involved palace officials, outside consultants, and carefully placed media contacts. They were all terrified, but they were also angry. Watching someone they admired being systematically destroyed awakened something in them, a sense of justice that transcended their employment contracts. By the 3rd day, James had compiled hours of recorded conversations, dozens of incriminating documents, and a detailed timeline of the plot. He sent everything to Kate's private number, using an encrypted app she'd provided. Her response came at midnight. Meeting tomorrow. 0600. The chapel. Come alone. The royal chapel was empty when James arrived before dawn. Candles flickered in the dim light. Kate was already there, dressed simply in dark clothes, her face grave. I've spent the last 3 nights going through everything you've sent, she said without preamble. It's worse than I thought. This isn't just about removing me. It's about reshaping the entire line of succession. She showed him additional documents she'd uncovered. Camilla wants her own bloodline prioritized. She's been working behind the scenes to diminish George, Charlotte, and Louis's future roles, making them seem less capable, less worthy. James felt sick. She's going after the children. She's going after the future. And if we don't stop her now, the monarchy my children were born to inherit will be unrecognizable. The plan Kate proposed was audacious and dangerous. Instead of quietly confronting Camilla or going to the king, they would expose everything publicly at the upcoming state banquet, in front of dignitaries, media, and witnesses who couldn't be silenced. It's the only way, Kate explained. In private, we can be dismissed, discredited, disappeared. In public, before the world, the truth becomes undeniable. James had 72 hours to prepare. Kate gave him access codes to secure areas of the palace. She introduced him to a trusted technology specialist who could set up hidden recording equipment in the banquet hall. They worked in shadows, like resistance fighters in their own home. But Camilla was also moving forward with her plan. The fake medical reports were being finalized. Media contacts were being prepped for the story. The machinery of destruction was already in motion. On Thursday evening, 2 days before the banquet, James intercepted a conversation. That made his blood run cold. He was stationed outside a private meeting room when he heard Camilla speaking to Dr. Whitmore, and another man James didn't recognize. She somehow discovers the plan and tries to resist. "We have contingencies," the unknown man said. His voice was cold, professional, the voice of someone accustomed to making problems disappear. "What kind of contingencies?" Camilla asked. "An incident. Nothing fatal. A fall, perhaps? Or a reaction to medication. Something that requires hospitalization. Once she's vulnerable, the psychiatric evaluation becomes mandatory. Problem solved." They were planning to physically harm Kate if she didn't cooperate. James's finger hovered over his phone's record button, capturing every word. But his hands shook with rage. These weren't just conspirators. They were willing to hurt her, maybe even kill her. And the children. Camilla's voice was emotionless. "Custody can be challenged if the mother is deemed unfit. It's been done before in the family. Remember Princess Diana's struggles. Similar circumstances can be arranged. Diana. They were invoking Princess Diana, Kate's late mother-in-law, who'd been destroyed by this same institution. James had heard enough. He sent the recording directly to Kate with a message. They're planning physical harm. We need to move now. Kate's response was immediate. Meet me in the archive room. 20 minutes. The palace archives were underground, a maze of climate-controlled rooms containing centuries of royal documents. Kate was waiting by a section marked Private Correspondence, Restricted Access. Listen to this, she said, pulling out an old letter. It was dated in 1997, written by Princess Diana to her personal secretary. James read it by flashlight. Diana described feeling trapped, watched, undermined by forces within the palace she couldn't identify. She mentioned plans being made without her knowledge, conversations that stopped when she entered rooms, a growing sense that people wanted her gone. She knew, Kate said quietly. Diana knew someone was working against her. She just didn't have proof before she died. The parallel was chilling, history repeating itself. Another princess, another conspiracy, another attempt to remove a woman who'd become too popular, too influential, too beloved. We're not letting history repeat, Kate said firmly. Tomorrow, we show the evidence to William. Together, no more waiting. He needs to know what his stepmother is capable of before the banquet. Will he believe it? He'll have to. The evidence is overwhelming. Kate's jaw set with determination. And if he doesn't, I'll expose it all anyway, with or without his support. My children's future is at stake. That night, James barely slept. He reviewed every piece of evidence, ensuring nothing was missing. The photographs, the recordings, the documents, the timeline. Everything was ready. At dawn, he received a text from Kate. William knows. He's devastated, but he believes us. The king has been informed. Emergency family meeting at 10:00 hours. Be ready to present everything. James felt relief and terror in equal measure. They'd done it. They'd gotten through to the future king and the current one. But now came the confrontation. The morning crept by in agonizing slowness. At 9:45, James was summoned to a private chamber he'd never entered before, the king's personal study. Inside, King Charles sat at his desk, looking decades older than his years. Prince William stood by the window, his face carved from stone. Kate sat composed but tense in a leather chair, and across from them, serene and smiling, sat Queen Camilla. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Morrison, Charles said heavily. I understand you have accusations to make. James glanced at Kate. She gave him a small nod of encouragement. At accusations, Your Majesty, James said, pulling out his phone. Evidence. For the next hour, he presented everything. He played recordings. He showed documents. He walked through the entire conspiracy step by step, watching Camilla's expression shift from confident to concerned to coldly furious. When he finished, the room was silent. Then Camilla laughed. A brittle, desperate sound. This is absurd. Fabricated nonsense from a disgruntled guard and a paranoid daughter-in-law. Charles, surely you don't believe I've seen the documents, Charles interrupted quietly. Real ones. Kate showed me the folder from Dr. Whitmore's office this morning. Your handwriting is all over them. The truth hung in the air like a blade about to fall. Camilla's mask of innocence cracked, revealing the calculating mind beneath. You don't understand the position I'm in, she said, her voice hardening. I've spent my entire life being second. Second to Diana's memory. Second to public opinion. Second in my own marriage. I refuse to be second to Kate as well. So you've decided to destroy her. William's voice was barely controlled fury. To fake medical records. To threaten my children? To protect the institution. Kate is too popular. She overshadows Charles. She overshadows the crown itself. That kind of power in the hands of someone not born royal is dangerous. She's my wife, William said coldly. The mother of the future king. You tried to destroy my family. Camilla turned to Charles, desperate now. Tell them you understand. We discussed this, the need to maintain traditional structures, to prevent another Diana situation where public sympathy gives someone too much leverage. Charles looked at his wife with an expression of profound sadness and betrayal. We discussed concerns about media management, not fabricating evidence, not threatening my grandchildren, not plotting to harm Kate. I was protecting you. Protecting the monarchy from another weak king controlled by his wife's popularity. The words struck Charles visibly. Weak king? The insult landed exactly as intended. Get out, he said quietly. Charles, I said get out. His voice rose for the first time. Remove yourself from this room, from this palace. You're confined to Clarence House until we determine what happens next. Camilla stood, her face white with fury. You're making a mistake. That family, she gestured at William and Kate, will destroy everything we've built. She's too modern, too common. She turned the monarchy into a circus, as opposed to what you've turned it into. William stepped forward. A conspiracy. A plot to harm an innocent woman. You're exactly what the monarchy doesn't need. Camilla left, her exit silent but seething. When the door closed, Charles seemed to collapse inward. I didn't know, he said, mostly to himself. I should have seen it. Kate rose and went to her father-in-law, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. She was careful, calculated. This isn't your fault. How can I face the country knowing my wife plotted against my daughter-in-law? Against my grandchildren? The same way every institution survives scandal, Kate said firmly. With honesty, transparency, by showing that when we discover corruption, we root it out, even when it hurts. Charles looked at his son and daughter-in-law. What do you want to do? William and Kate exchanged glances. We tell the truth, William said. Not all the details, but enough. We announce that Camilla is stepping back from royal duties due to personal matters. We make it clear that Kate has our full confidence and support. The evidence, Charles asked, looking at James. Remains sealed, Kate answered, but secure, in case she ever tries something again. Consider it insurance. Over the following weeks, the palace carefully managed the revelation. A brief statement announced that Queen Consort Camilla would be taking an extended leave from public duties for personal reasons. No elaboration, no scandal. Just a quiet exit from public life. James Morrison returned to his duties, but his life had changed irrevocably. Kate ensured he was promoted to a senior security position with increased pay and responsibilities. More importantly, she made certain he knew his courage hadn't gone unnoticed. Sarah and the other staff members who'd helped were similarly recognized. Their jobs secured, their loyalty rewarded. 3 months later, James stood in the same corridor where he'd first overheard Camilla's plot. But this time, he watched Princess Kate walk past with George, Charlotte, and Louis. She was laughing at something Louis said. Her face radiant and untroubled, she caught James's eye and gave him a small, private nod of thanks. Then she continued on, her children chattering around her, her future secure. James had broken his oath of silence to protect something more important than rules. He'd chosen justice over duty, truth over tradition. And in doing so, he'd saved not just one woman, but the future of the monarchy itself. Sometimes the greatest act of loyalty is knowing when to break the rules, when to speak up instead of standing silent, when to risk everything for what's right. The palace walls still whispered with secrets, but now at least one story had ended not in tragedy, but in triumph. Because sometimes even in the oldest and most rigid institutions, courage and truth can still win. And that night, James Morrison slept soundly for the first time in months, knowing he'd done more than just his duty. He'd done what was right. The end.